I met our special guest speaker for the first time just a couple of months ago. I'd flown to San Francisco for an industry event, and I decided to stop by his offices to meet him since he had so graciously accepted our keynote invitation. After spending just a few minutes with him, I knew I was talking to a product guy just like myself. Someone who's fiercely passionate about everything that goes into creating a stellar product. If you know product people, you know that they obsess over every little detail from concept to creation. This is evident in his company's product line that has set new standards for the world of pleasure products. He himself has received numerous product and graphic design awards outside of the industry, and I'd say that's some serious notoriety. His career has been highly influential, and his story truly inspirational. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome our 2013 Pleasure Products keynote in his first ever industry address, Jimmyjane founder, Ethan Mboden.
I don't want to be your sex subject.
It's also the first time I've had an intro song, and that song, so you know, is Kraftwerk, and it's Sex Object. And I was confronted with this conundrum last Friday. I received an email from Mo of XBiz that said, "So what song do you want to come up to?" And I thought, I have no fucking idea. And so I racked my brain. I ended up going on to Spotify, and I put into Spotify search sex, and then it came up with all these songs. I click and I listen, I click and I listen, I click and I listen. And then Vibrator, I click and listen, fuck. And then I found this song, and I was like, I love Kraftwerk. It sort of tied in with my childhood beautifully, and it always sounds like the future to me, even though it's the 1980s. I'm not German, but you know. And then I realized when I got some messages from my friends that on Facebook, Spotify was posting, Ethan's listening to sex, vibrator, fuck, vibrator, sex, vibrator, fuck. Anyway, so sometimes in this industry I feel like I'm wearing my underwear outside my pants. This is the title I chose, and hopefully it'll make sense by the time we're done here. I do have a piece of the future in my pocket here. It's a laser pointer, so I can get all the way over there. The way I put together presentations is just, there's a zillion slides, so we're going to get going. Somebody's phone here. I'm hoping that this can tell me how much time I have. Before I get going, thank you so much to XBiz, Alec, Mo, and the rest of the team for having me here. It is the first time that I've addressed a large crowd in the industry. Usually I'm talking to entrepreneurs in various categories. Last year I did something in Stockholm, and the thing with that is that in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king, and in those worlds I can go in and I can do a half-assed job talking about entrepreneurship, but they don't know anything about sex products, so everything I say there is just genius. Here, what I've realized is that there's a lot of geniuses in the audience. Not a big realization, but in the conversation I had here earlier today on stage, in the panel discussion and so on, I just re-engaged people I haven't seen for a while. And so I don't know that I can tell you anything you don't already know, but my hope here is that maybe I can put things into context, that you can ask some questions of me and of one another and of your own businesses. So thank you, and let's begin. The first thing to know about any prediction is that it's pretty much going to be wrong. The Mayans were wrong about 2012, thank you very much, but a lot of what I posit here is it's not that far out there, so it may or may not be wrong, but give me some leeway. This is a telescope, it's not that obvious, but this is really just to symbolize that I'm just going to talk about the industry from my perspective. It's the only perspective that I have. It's very vibrator focused in this particular presentation, but hopefully you can extrapolate to your own experiences. So here's what we're going to talk about: the past, the future, and putting it all together, and then parenting. Parenting is going to surprise you at the end, or maybe not. It's just a title to keep you here for the whole presentation. The past, I was asked to talk a little bit about my past and how I got to be here on stage today. At first I was a little reluctant because it's not really about that, but then I thought it's actually very useful for that telescope reason. It'll help give some perspective on how I think about things and how I view things. From when I was very young, I loved looking at science fiction imagery and reading science fiction and watching movies and so on. This is a book that I had that posited all sorts of great things for the future, including cool-looking trucks, people that are super groovy, women with egg-shaped heads, and this guy back here, I'm not sure what he's doing, but in the background, he's like carrying something for somebody. Anyway, this technology is all to come. Actually, a lot of the things in this book came true. I don't know that we're going to have the Olympic Games in 2020 on the moon, which is what's being the idea here. So this is a high jump, very, very, very high jump. But this does influence our marketing. This is not something we put together for this. This is actually from an email that we put out. A customer said to us, actually no, Gizmodo said to us, Form 2, everybody's saying it looks like a tooth, it looks like this, it looks like that, it looks like a Tamagotchi. Gizmodo said, it looks like the Millennium Falcon. And I said, yes! It does look like the Millennium. It had not occurred to me until that moment, but this is sort of the ode to that comment. Before being here, and after reading science fiction books, I went to school as an engineer, undergraduate, and electrical and computer science, electrical engineering and computer science. And from there, ended up working in engineering, actually, in the Human Genome Project at Lawrence Berkeley Laboratory, the National Laboratory in Berkeley, and sequencing DNA, or actually creating a DNA sequencer to sequence DNA. This is what DNA looks like being sequenced. There was something missing there, sort of the human element and the aesthetic component that I was just trying to associate with engineering, which in fact is a part of design. Went back to graduate school, and I went to a school that was very non-engineering, Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, and there I did things like this, like figure and space, form, and shape studies. Very abstract, but then it all comes down to actually creating a real product at the end of the day. This is actually not my study, I should say. This is somebody else's that I found online. I then went on to work for a number of different brand and product development groups. The Arnell Group, Echo Design, Alchemy Labs, and ultimately Frog Design. If you don't know Frog and IDEO are two of the largest global design firms in the country. Frog is known for giving us the first Apple Macintosh, for setting the Sony design language, and so on. While I was there, I designed products for, or at all these different places, a huge range of different brands, from toothbrushes for Colgate to computers for Dell, cell phones for Motorola, eyewear for Nike, furniture for Herman Miller. I left Frog because I wanted three things. Self-determination, I wanted to know and be able to decide what I was working on. Second, I wanted to disintermediate the process, get rid of some of the people between me and the consumer, so that I could make sure that my designs were connecting a little bit more directly. And thirdly, I wanted accountability. I wanted to be held responsible for what I created, because I think that that's part of the designer's imperative. So I quit, and I started my own design firm called Plink. And then I came down here. I had 3 different people come to me and ask me to look into products related to sex. And at this point, I had never designed anything related to sex. I had designed shoes and toothbrushes and computers and a whole bunch of other stuff, but nobody ever asked about this. And all of a sudden, everybody was asking, so I came to a trade show with a potential client, actually, who had been working at Frog as well. So this was Andy, actually, I'm lying, this is Venus just a couple of years ago, but it kind of looks like Andy did back then. I walked into a room that I was really pretty wholly unprepared for. I had had very little intersection with vibrators and so on, other than the occasional recreational use or gift or what have you. And so it was a bit overwhelming for me, as it is for many consumers, I think. And I was a bit taken aback. But as soon as I started realizing it's just a business for everybody else, I could remove all of that stigma and just see it as product. Once I saw it as product, what surprised me was that I was really seeing things, and I hope I don't offend anybody here, But what I thought I saw at that time, what was typical for branding was really association with porn stars. And I thought something different was possible. The tone was really either very explicit or really kind of goofy. And the pricing seemed completely decoupled from value from what I knew from cost of goods in other industries. The opportunity then for me, in my mind, was we could create something aspirational. We could create something that was implicit and provocative, and we could create something that's really, the price you pay is really tied back to the experience it delivers. It's really anchored in value. The products themselves, anatomical or humorous, the materials were often toxic, construction pretty shoddy, and performance was really lacking in terms of some of the key attributes you'd be looking for in a product. Again, an opportunity, something minimal, refined, safe, durable, quiet, subversible. I had this notion in my mind that it should look and feel like this. And I can explain that in greater detail, but this guy is having a good time. He's smiling. He's spanking this girl who, you can tell she's smiling from the shape of her eye. They're in this sort of high-low environment, right? It's kind of fancy, but it could also be not a Motel 6, but it could be any random sort of design hotel. Some champagne on the side table there. And, anyway, I saw this spread in a magazine. I thought, okay, this is the playfulness and this balance of high and low and someone that I'm looking for. But actually, I was part of a company I would then later named Somatica. And this was not relevant to Somatica. Somatica was looking at internet-enabled devices. We were talking about haptics. We were talking about biosensing. We had an amazing prototype of an audio-responsive vibrator. This is in 2002. We were looking to be middleware suppliers to the industry. We would provide you with technology, you would make the product, we would get a licensing fee. We'd handle all the IP and so on. It was a genius idea, except when we started talking to people, or I started talking to people, nobody wanted any of that stuff. And so I did what's known in Silicon Valley these days as a pivot. In those days it was known as a what the fuck, I need to change directions. Went back to this. So to explain this a little bit further, that's Mark Jacobs spanking Sofia Coppola. And so the accessibility of the image combined with the aspiration was what was really inspiring to me. I started sketching, and then sketches turned into engineering, and engineering turned into prototypes. We really wanted to test the extreme, something that hadn't been seen before, something that was totally out there. A precious metal vibrator, 24 karat gold. But to make that actually rational, it had to last forever. So we made and patented the first vibrator with a replaceable motor. We then took that to even further extremes, adding a row of 28 round cut BS1 diamonds. We rounded this out because it's not just about vibrators, it's about this whole idea, this lifestyle concept in 2002. Blindfolds, fragrances, all natural, massage oil candles, which at that point were just soy. You pour on your partner would be like, why the fuck did you do that to me? And they really weren't in the industry at that point. Some jewelry even. And then I sought a name and came up with Jimmyjane. It was the first name made everybody smile. I won't go into the details of where it came from. But from that double J in the middle, it's actually my Y, J, Y, right in cursive, came the mark, the double J. We launched, and that involved all sorts of fun things like shooting naked girls in the backyard of one of my friend's houses. That horrified my friend, but anyway. This was never seen this way. We don't really show a whole lot of nipple on Jimmyjane.com, but we launched. And the test really worked well. The products were picked up by celebrities, celebrities were picked up by magazines, and suddenly we were in business. In this instance, Kate Moss was seen buying a couple of products that was written up in Vogue. And suddenly we were in magazines with vibrators and being published places that had never published vibrators before, and many that haven't published since. I was really defining a new media context and a new social context with the sort of people who were willing to be associated with the brand. Here's Paulina Porskova wearing her blindfold. And then we took it into a new retail context. Fred Siegel here in LA was one of our earliest retail partners. The only sex positive retail actually we worked at that point in time was Good Vibrations, and maybe immediately thereafter Bayland. This is us between Stella McCartney and Melanie Getz. A very different set of retailers. We even sold vibrators through Louis Vuitton's Private Members Club in Tokyo. Some of these partnerships still remain, some do not. But we really started looking where we could intersect with the consumer where they already shopped as opposed to requiring them to go somewhere new. We then continued to build out the product line with our afterglow candles, our contour ceramic massage stones, partnerships like the one we have with Pact and the underwear collaboration we did, creating a line of accessible vibrators by sourcing through partners, including Vibratex and Big T's, going to the original manufacturers of these original great iconic products and pulling them into our line so that our customer had access to them too, but they were exclusive to us in this color. A very successful concept for us. And we expanded our other lines and of course created the Forum line of vibrators. So here we are almost exactly 10 years later, not from the date of the launch of Jimmyjane. Jimmyjane wasn't really visible until the end of 2004, very beginning of 2005. But for me, it's been over 10 years.